Berg Show. Folks, welcome inside the Blackwood Broadcasting Studios at an undisclosed Institute of Higher Learning. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Thanks for being part of the program today. My brain is on a subway as I head into the vortex of living the live. Do you practice what you preach on stage? Do you remember the cats who accompanied you into battle when the album is credited? Or because of insecurity, do you take all the credit? These are obviously things that each musician has to deal with in his or her own individual way. My guest today is someone who has gone up against it in his musical life. He played with the Temps and was fortunate enough to be around when the chitlin circuit was hoppin', the floorboards were shakin', and the fingerpoppin daddies were all having a ball. Bud Light didn't sponsor everything with a streamlined approach that saps the individuality away from poll-tested focus groups. To find, you must seek, which is what my guest has been doing of late with the release of his latest CD, Faces, which is dedicated to the late Tom Donlinger, who was one heck of a gravity adjuster, along with Boz Scaggs, Steve Miller, Ben Sidran, and all the other crazy cats from Wisconsin. My guest albums have become cult classics all over the world, and his recent international fame has prompted him to put together his own YouTube clip showing off his cosmic keys. Howard Wales, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
How you doing, Jake?
It's nice to talk to you, man.
Nice to talk to you.
So that was coming in, we heard a little aqua breeze there off Faces.
Mm-hmm.
You know, talk a little bit about how this album came together. In all these tunes are original Howard Wales tunes, and take us through how it all came together.
Well, pretty much like all the albums, really. Just put people together, and where the chemistry is right, and everything moves and grooves good, and that's what creates the. What I think, anyway, is the real nice feeling of freshness to what you're doing, So that's basically nothing. It's not rocket science, It's just what it is the chemistry of human beings and people that reach out and go out of the box and are be able to understand where you're going with your music,
Talk about speaking of knowing where you're going, Tom Donlinger. I mean, talk about the first time that you met him, and then ultimately why you dedicated the album to him.
I met Tom quite a long time ago, back in the Renaissance period. Here, it basically was back in those days when I think it was 68 or 69 when I met Tom. And actually, I met Tom through Jim Vincent, his brother, great guitar player. And I was doing a gig at the Fillmore for a couple of days, and I needed a bass player. And so, of all people, I got introduced to Hawk Walensky, which I know you interviewed him.
A friend of the Jake Feinberg Show.
Yes, sir. And anyway, so I met him, and I needed a bass player, and then Tom was playing drums. So that was pretty much the first time that Tom and I had played together, and we stayed friends and musical. Our musical thing was just very, very, very tight and very, very communicative. And he was always a consummate professional, and he really came to play and ready to play, and always, curious to the unknown. You know what I mean? It's the unknown. It gets people's interest if you're willing to open up your mind to it.
Oh, that's well said. No, I was going to say one thing about Faces that I took note of as I listened to it is that there's a real Latin island feel to a lot of the songs. I feel like he was playing timbales, or just what is it about the Latin groove that because it was all over this album.
Well, I don't know. Latin-wise, in terms of maybe, but there's probably three tunes on there, 4 tunes that have that influence. I think I try to mix things up, so that you don't really stay exactly in one place. So, but music, Jake, is basically the rhythms of life and how you pursue it on your life trip, so to speak. Is how everything works in your life. How is it working, not working? It's all based on mood, and that's how you create music that doesn't become stale, but is always different each time.
At some point in 1970 or 71 period, back in the Renaissance period, you auditioned with the Grateful Dead for a keyboard slot. Is that?
I did, to go to Europe.
And can you talk about how that even came about?
Well, that was from Jerry, and and anyone else connected with the organization there that wanted that to be.
In essence, Keith Gottschall was not there. Jerry went to the band and said, "Did you know the rest of the guys in the group? Had you had a chance to play with them prior to?"
Yeah, because we had jammed a number of times over at the Avalon Ballroom and the Great Highway place, the Great Highway in San Francisco. There on. Actually, that turned into the other. I'm just thinking of something else. I'm sorry, but anyway, we jammed together in a couple, 2 or 3 different places.
Yeah, I was going to say there's, like I said, I was inundated after my first interview with Howard from all sorts of fans, and there's a circulating tape from a Thursday night, August 28th, 1969, at the Family Dog.
Family Dog is what I was thinking.
Yeah, I know you were, because we're locked in.
I was trying to go there.
I know you're trying to go. No, so it was labeled as Mickey and the Heartbeats, but the band is Garcia, Phil Lesh, Bill Kreutzmann, Mickey, Pigpen, and Howard on organ. And so, I mean, apparently shows like this were just publicized with flyers on telephone poles.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how a lot of things were done that way.
But who invited? But who invited? The questions that from the audience were: who invited Howard to this gig? This was well before the Matrix shows. So, what was the social or musical connection that got him invited to that jam?
I think the most influence would have been Jerry. Jerry and I were the closest in that organization, in that band. Him and I were far and above, just on a communicative, on a musical level, and a life level per se. We just really hit it off real well. And of course, his thing is that, which is the most respected thing I always thought of Jerry, is somebody never closed his ears to any kind of music and so on. He tried to find the good in the just go out there and learn it and groove with it and get into it, because he was open-minded completely,
But this was before the Matrix show, so you would play. When did you? Do you remember when you first were able to play with Jerry?
Yeah, it was like at that gig, the one you were talking about at the Family Dung.
At the Family Dung, and but who? But they had just heard you playing outside of it, and Jerry said this was a good idea. Let's bring him into the jam.
Yeah, well, the thing is that, during that whole scene, a lot of people, pretty well word of mouth, covered many, many areas in the Bay Area and elsewhere in California or whatever. And it just, people just knew that things really cool were happening at different places and so on. Like you said about the, posters on the telephone pole or whatever. things like that. It just a lot of stuff was circulated that way. It wasn't just advertised on the newspaper or on radio. Some of it on radio, but a lot of it was just word of mouth.
How did you when you got into the rehearsal for the Europe tour? What did you take away from that experience? Were you turned off by the guys? Did you have a positive experience? I mean, it never materialized, obviously.
Well, for two reasons, to be upfront with you. I didn't really want the gig because I really wasn't looking forward to the curse that had been put on the keyboard players.
Very good, very smart.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other part of this equation was the fact is they actually made up their mind. It wasn't on a musical level, on an instrumental level or anything like that. But the thing that happened was they realized that I don't sing except with my fingers, so it didn't work.
Right, and they wanted somebody that had vocal chops, I guess. But
yeah. No, there was nothing. It was absolutely no question mark about the musical ability or the fun part of it or any other thing that encompassed it. It wasn't really anything to do with that.
What were like on a life level? You and Jerry connected. Talk about some of the. You guys are both heavy intellectuals, and obviously, there was lots of wonderful things, mind expanding things going on. But talk about a conversation you guys might have had early on that sort of said to you, "Wow, this guy is not your typical cat."
Well, let's see. Come up with the best. Let me go back to the Matrix days, and excuse me, I need some water.
Well, the floor is yours.
Going back to the Matrix days, Jerry and I, I ran that jam there for quite a while, and then a lot of people came down and played. And when Jerry was coming down there to play, we had a lot of conversations about, the future of a lot of different things, music and so on, everything else surrounding it. And just felt that it would be nice to be able to, go off in other directions and so on. And he just impressed me as somebody that our minds were pretty meld, in terms of being able to understand. His background was a lot similar to mine in terms of his personal life and different things, but we just seemed to have a really great mental clarity to our relationship, which manifested itself both in conversation and music.
Did you? I mean, the first couple of times that you guys would play after the gigs, would you sort of just say, "Hey, that was fun"? Would you compare notes? I mean, because you were running that Matrix session. We talked about that when those cats that were running the place, Lord knows what happened to them, but they said, "You want to run this thing?" And did you actually? You were playing with a different band or different trio at that point, and you just decided, you're like, "Well, I'm going to get Garcia and Kahn and Billy Vitt." How did that all work out?
You mean for the Hooterroll album?
Not even the Hooter, just the idea when you took over it's my understanding that when you took over the Matrix jam session that Garcia was not part of your working band at that point.
No.
So
no, it wasn't. It was myself and Bill Vitt and John Kahn and whoever else, and whoever played guitar, whatever night that was.
It could have been like Jim Vincent or...
Yeah, it could have been. We had so many people that came down. It was only a place that held only maybe... There was no dancing, so it was just pretty much all sitting there completely... Yes, sitting there.
and
not being able to really do much else of anything else, let's put it that way.
Well, it was, I mean, listen, Merle's son Tony talks about sleeping on pillows in there, hiding in these pillows. I mean, it sounds like somebody's, basement or something.
Oh, dude, man, let me tell you, Jake, if you were part of that atmosphere that took place back in that era, you would have been in hog heaven.
They would have had to wheel me out of there.
They would have taken you out in a stretcher, man.
Well,
I'm telling you. But anyway.
No, I wanted to segue here into Howard foisted a very special piece of music, just a record on me recently, and I wanted to play a clip of it, and then come back and we'll talk about it.
Sounds good.
Next stop, 42nd Street. Have you listened to that? No, I mean I know you sent. Have you?
It's yeah, man.
Cooking.
Yeah, oh yeah, and all that young energy.
That the name of that track was Brain Subway, and
yeah, Brain Subway. Yes.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, well, I don't even want to go into it. Was George Marsh on drums for that, or was it Donlinger? I mean, it's hard for me to.
No, that was Tommy.
It was Tommy, and we had. Why don't you fill in the rest? I mean, that was James Vincent Donlinger's
brother.
Right, but it was his album called Culmination. That's actually
correct, yeah.
was in 1971.
1971, man.
And then it is really a perfect mix of rock and jazz. It's really
a lot of fusion there, man.
I mean, real fusion, and to me, I mean, you're playing like a man possessed. I guess I never. You told me you showed your piano teacher the door early in your life. But when did you actually get your hands on a Hammond B3 originally?
Not until I was around 21.
And how long did it take you to even, realize? I mean, it just seems like the sequencing of your ideas is the most scintillating part. And did that come naturally, or was talk about your relationship with the Hammond and how you eventually were able to fuse it into these jazz rock settings?
Well, I started playing piano when I was 4 years old, and I played some classical music for a while, and then I got tired of the piano teacher, and I said, "It's time for you to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go on to another world here, please, but thank you very much, So she left, and then I never really knew that I wanted to be a professional, so to speak, musician. I just didn't really conceive of it until probably when I was 10 or 12 years old. And I think that when I got into the Hammond, I was playing on Rush Street in Chicago when I was 18, and I was playing Wurlitzer electric piano. And I was with a band called Robbie and the Troubadours at the time, and then I went on to other things and so on, and I just didn't get hooked up with the Hammond until I was around 20, 21 years old. I had a spinet Hammond to start with, but never the B3 type or the console organ.
What was the spinet? What was that difference?
Yeah, well, it was kind of like starting on Woolworth or whatever, and ending up in the in the higher places. But anyway.
What did Jerry used to talk to you about with your playing of? Because I mean, Pigpen was primarily just a blues. He was heavy blues, but you had that, but you also were elevated with serious jazz chops, and there's no doubt in my. This is really interesting. What did Jerry used to talk about with your playing? What did he like? Everybody knows the famous quote, but what would he say to you? Like, "Wow, Howard, I didn't even know I could do that." I mean, was he?
Well, he said that, and he also he elaborated on the fact that the very fact that where Ike was coming from was completely unique to what he ever encountered. So,
can you be specific about that?
Well, well, let's look at it this way. When music has no boundaries, okay, that's the way I see it. There is no boundaries in music. So if there's no boundaries, that means that if you want to get to certain places on this whole trip of life, you have to open your mind and just go out there and try to do things that you maybe thought you never could do, and then all of a sudden you're in in a chemistry, people, right, that create a certain aura around playing, and that takes you to that level that you never thought you could do. Understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in Jerry's case, coming from the Warlocks or the Grateful Dead, it was when he heard you, it was more open than what he had been used to.
Well, he just never heard anybody play like that. And in terms of the individuality, playing of it, I do chords that are not in the book.
Right.
And that's so did the monk, Thelonious Monk. And when I met him, he said to me, "Always be yourself." He told me that, and it was a long time ago. And everybody, didn't praise that man because it didn't really understand what he was doing. He made chords and stuff that weren't in the so-called book. Well, you got to throw the book out. You know what I mean?
People are petrified to throw the book out these days. They don't want to. It's like Linus's Blanky. Speaking of which, did you cross paths with the venerable Vince Guaraldi at any point?
I met him once, but that I never actually hung out with him, and so on. Respected him as a player.
I want to go back to this. This is so fast. This Alan Douglas cat, who is Columbia producer, signed you to a record album that ultimately turned into Hooterole. Columbia was at that time. They eventually they supported a brief '72 East Coast tour. Howard Wales and Friends, and that was you on keyboards, Roger Troy on bass, Jerry Love on drums, Jim Donlinger on guitar, and Jerry Garcia. Actually, no, it was James Vincent,
right?
And
Jim Vincent never went by Jim Donlinger.
Do you?
It was always Jimmy Vincent.
Do you recall? Because those were all your boys from the Midwest, but do you recall approaching Jerry and saying, "Hey, let's what was that like getting him to?" Because I mean, he was outside the bar, way outside at that point.
No, man, he was all up for that tour. Yeah, we had a blast.
And the question,
I hadn't laughed so much in my life, because Jelly Roll was probably one of the more funniest people you'd ever meet in your life. I mean, he was a prankster all the way to the whole full limit. He's funny. He was the great storyteller of our time, and but that's a whole other story. I don't want to get into that.
No, I was going to say that the interesting thing here is that a listener brought this to my attention is that you were linked up with Mahavishnu at the time. They were the other act on those bills when nobody knew about them, and I wanted to know. Truthfully, at the time when you heard them, what was your view of Mahavishnu at that time?
That band, oh
yeah,
man, totally out there, really cool. Really played incredible stuff. The thing about you have to have groundbreaking things, to order to create interest. I think it may take people a time to really understand what you're doing, but that's how fresh things occur, because basically they're just done in a way that opens up the envelope to everything.
How did everyone knows Bob Weir is the rhythm guitar player and how he synced up with Garcia, but how did Jimmy Vincent and Jerry? I guess I'm just trying to get back into that. You guys played for that one show from the Symphony Hall. Mm-hmm. That's available. It's 2.5 hours, and of course, I'm just was there? It was your band. Was there a lot of dialogue prior to, like, who would take solos, or was it just a lot of eye contact? I'm just trying to, because like you said, it's got to be new. It's got to be.
No, man. It was just totally out of the gate. There was absolutely no rehearsals or nothing. It's just what I wanted to get at here. Which kind of, I'm trying to answer your thing in a way that. Well, it kind of revolves around spontaneity, okay, and to be able to jam. And I think being able to jam is the most crucial thing, because when you can do that, you put yourself in a position where you're not afraid, where fear plays no part in it. And I've been lucky, throughout the course of my life. I've played with a lot of people that had that feeling of being not, they're just right out there. They want to do it, and they don't have any fear. Not give me the CD and let me take it home and learn the song and all that stuff. It's just it's communication and, like I said earlier, chemistry. Of it all.
When you say the ability to jam, I know what you're talking about. But for other musicians out there who are sort of, the fear is still there and they know standards, but they, the idea of individual voice and that has not really evolved. How do you tell, besides just throwing the book out the window, how would you give advice to up and coming players in the times that we're living in, to get to that point where they can get to a point where they can say, I'm able to jam?
I think that jamming has to be done with people that have an open, open way to their brain, that does not significantly hinder them in terms of getting out there and trying to learn stuff. You can't jam with people that you don't have a good, brain communication with, and just the vibe of who you're working with. I think that all really depends on that. I've been real lucky that way, because I would have never been able to do my albums. You can't be a one-man island. You have to have people that surround you that complement, where you're coming from, And so I couldn't get any of what I got done without all the help from all the players, and they weren't there for the money, Jake. They were there for the music. So.
Right, they weren't. They were singularly focused on just making good music.
Correct.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about this. And I've seen. I had the album, and then I went home and opened it, and it was a different record inside the album, and it was so disappointing. This classic acid western movie, El Topo, that you were on. It was a Shades of Joy. With Martine Fierro. How did that come about? I mean, there's this wild.
That was through Alan Douglas.
So Douglas played you want to talk about a guy who understood the free form and the understanding of music.
No, he's from New York, and he had a good jazz. He loved jazz and so on. So he had his musical background opened up the fact that his interpretation of what he got into was just solid. So didn't really. That's where he was at. That's where he's at.
What do you think? Talk a little bit about the Cosmic Keys. What was the incentive to get on YouTube? Because it is a striking video. Talk about how that came to be.
Well, like I say, I like to wear a lot of hats. Okay, so I pretty much can do just about anything, and so I wanted to do something in a groove that was on a visual level, and a musical level as well, that was really different than any of the other stuff that I do. I have another thing, another video going up in about a week to 2 weeks. That's a real funky thing. That's pretty. I think it's pretty cool. I think people like that too. But it's just different, different stuff that, like I told you earlier in the conversation, keep it different, don't keep being the same thing to the same thing, you know what I mean? So that's how all that works.
Did you get the sense that with Jerry, especially when you at the Matrix, and then when you went on tour, like was he bored with the Dead at that point?
No, there was no boredom on that tour, man.
Not on that tour. I'm saying, was he stifled by the Grateful Dead at that point, and did he want?
I think, well, Jerry, he was with the Grateful Dead, of course, and as far as I was concerned, he was the Grateful Dead. I mean, he made what the Grateful Dead were. Without him, he was irreplaceable anyway. You know, and he just wanted to go, like I was saying earlier, he wanted to go to other worlds. You know, he wanted to experience music to the best he could. You know.
I'm looking here, according to Bob Weir in Dennis McNally's book, when you auditioned, he said things got too weird too fast, and the Dead moved on. I'm not sure what that means, but you're telling me that it was strictly because you did not sing. That was the reason why that it didn't work out.
Yeah. Also, I'd rather not discuss what my personal feeling is on it.
That's absolutely fine. Tell me a little bit about what you been. I know that there, listen, Jelly Roll and the Donlinger brothers and Jerry, John Kahn, Billy Vitt is still doing it, but what about Howard Wales in the live context? I mean, I know it has to be the right setting, and I know it has to be fresh, but what would get you salivating to play live, if anything?
Well, depending on the venue and just other particulars, it would have to be something, right, that is, the consciousness of it is high. I can't say it any better than that.
Close to the sun in lonely lands, ringed with the azure world he stands. The wrinkled sea beneath him crawls. He watches from his mountain walls. Do you know what poem that's from?
Tennyson.
Nailed it. And that is on the back of Jake Feinberg's favorite album of all time, Rendezvous with the Sun, 1976 on Coastal Music. And I actually went on last night, and there's one up there, and your boy who's doing it says it's up there for $50, and it says from the personal collection of Howard Wales, and then there's a picture of you giving a thumbs up on the couch.
Oh boy.
Yep, you're out there, man, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, you have to keep it fresh. You can't expect other people to know what that's about, and I think that for the legacy of all these cats, Martine and all these guys, I think it's essential. So Faces came out in 2012. We got the YouTube of Cosmic Keys, and you said there's another one going up as well. Are we going to be able to see you this time, or is it going to be this?
I don't know. The guy that's doing the videos, I let him basically do what he wants to do. Whatever he thinks works. He's basically taking the video aspect of it back to the late 60s, in that time period and so on and so forth. A lot of colors, a lot of things like that.
Tell the audience, if you would, one thing that tell me a classic story about a conversation that you and Garcia had that has not been told before.
It's a hard question to answer. There's many conversations that have been said. On a spontaneous level, I don't know exactly where I could go with that. As far as we had so many conversations I had with him about life and music. It's just that I think we were really good to know each other, as well as not. We didn't go out to dinner and do a lot of social things like that. We just had a very well connected emotional feeling towards music, and just not being hung up and learn and all kinds of stuff. Just our relationship was pretty much based on intellectual ability to understand a lot about life and different things and how we can make it better and so on, and our path. What kind of path do we have here? You know what I mean?
Did you guys were you into sci-fi as well? Big sci-fi fan?
Yeah.
So because I know he was obsessed with that as well.
Yeah. We talked about that a lot.
In 1988, at the old Waldorf or the old Warfield, you wound up playing with him in 1988. Do you remember how you reconnected? It was just kind of it came out of nowhere.
It was what now? I'm sorry.
In March of 1988, at the old Warfield, you wound up playing with the Jerry Garcia band.
Right.
Don't Let Go, and that was clearly. I mean, we're looking about 16, 15 years after you guys had originally collaborated, and
right.
People were curious as to how that came about. I mean, you just happened to be around. You walked up backstage and met him. How did you wind up reconnecting?
No, I was invited down to play. And you're talking about at the Warfield, right?
Absolutely. So Jerry called you, or?
Yeah.
And then was there ever an opportunity to piggyback on that, or to do anything else after that?
No, not really. To be honest with you, man, it was really hard to do another album other than what happened that came out of the vault with the Side Trips album after the Hooterol album. As far as past that, there wasn't really much of an opportunity to do anything else at that point.
Just, I'm. This is for the record, but explain to me in Chicago, you were with the original band that you. What was the name of that band again?
In Chicago, Robbie and the Troubadours.
Robbie and the Troubadours, and then
right.
you wound up working with Freddie King. Is that right?
Well, I went to Cincinnati, and actually, I went up to. I went to Canada, up to Toronto. I played with Ronnie Hawkins up there.
How did it come about? I'm very fascinated about this idea that you'd have blues bands, essentially white blues bands, that coming out of the Midwest, but then, like you said, like I said in the intro, going on tour with these soul groups like Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye, or the Temps.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had a band called the Click, and it was with Jelly Roll was bass, and basically we had a band, and that's what we did. We backed up the Four Tops and all kinds of people of that genre.
Well, let's not gloss over that. You backed up the Four Tops.
Yeah.
I mean, how did that even? Who was the mastermind to say, let's fuse these guys with massive jam chops with these burgeoning soul acts? I mean, where did that?
Oh, yeah, but it doesn't mean that we couldn't, play the standards, so to speak, and groove with what they were doing. I mean, it's just music,
Absolutely. Howard Wales, anything else you want to add about your current your current rendezvous with life at this point?
I just am about to finish a solo project, a bunch of organ tracks and a few piano tracks. No ensemble type thing. It's pretty cool.
Now we're going to get started on that book too real soon.
The book.
The book. No, actually, the nice thing about Faces is that I can see your face in this in that CD, which is nice.
You should play for the people out there. You should play them a little bit of The Truth of Blues a la carte, cut number 7.
Yeah, actually, my favorite ones.
Unless you added something else keyed up from the album.
No, but
really good stuff.
Yeah, no, this is it is and there's actually just some really, really good tracks on the whole thing. Everything from Propellion to
Propellion
to the one we heard, which was Aqua Breeze. But Howard, it was really an honor. It's just always fun to talk to you. I'm going to go back and listen to this and derive all these nuggets out of there. And I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Jake. A pleasure.
All right.
Good conversation.
Always, my friend.
All the best to you and your family.
All right, we'll talk to you soon, brother.
And I'll talk to you soon.
All right, now.
Bye.
Jake Feinberg Show. See you all in a little bit.